Hello, everyone. It is your boy, Davion. Welcome to another episode of Conscious TV. You guys have heard a lot about this 2019 podcast that I have been running off at the mouth about all 2018, and things are finally going to be on the roll for 2019. So I am giving you guys just a smidge bit of a teaser in terms of what you can expect. There's going to be a brand new channel with brand new content on it. You guys will be able to interact with me live on this new channel. It's going to be amazing, and you guys don't have to go anywhere. You guys can stay currently subscribed to my current channel, Conscious TV, because I'm going to put all of my craziness on Conscious TV, and some of my more conscious, elevated conversations are going to be on my brand new channel. So today, we're going to bring to you the John Gray edition, and the format for the show is I want to give you guys an insight in terms of some of the personal conversations that me and my closest compadres have about everything under the sun. These are not formal conversations. These are just raw, adult-rated, open forums between mystics. And I think I want to call this Conversations with the Mystics, the John Gray edition. So I have my really good friend, brother, prophet, pastor. You guys know I don't do religion and I don't do the Orthodox Church, but if I had to have a pastor, this would be the closest thing in my life to to me having a pastor. So I want to introduce to you guys my really good friend, Khozmiq Newage. Good morning, Khozmiq. How are you doing?
Good morning, man. That was an incredible compliment to be paid about being your pastor, because I'm a I'm very excited, and thank you for extending your audience. Really, allowing me to kind of be a fly on the wall. We normally do day in, day out.
Absolutely. They're going to be pretty shocked at some of the conversations that I know are going to come up this year, because we get deep down in the nooks and the crevices of the anatomy of things, and we go far out in these conversations, and I just really enjoy being surrounded by critical thinkers, by metaphysicians, and by intellectuals, and people who just don't mind entertaining perspective and theory, and who are just academia based, but also just come from a place of just raw creative thinking, and I just love that blend. So before we get heavy into this conversation, could you just tell the people a little bit about you and where they can find you, because we know that you offer an array of different services.
Okay, yeah, sure. So first off, let me give my disclaimer. I am not a pastor.
Right.
I'm not a pastor. I am prophetic. I am a prophet. I am a seer. I am a spiritualist, aka a witch doctor, a root worker. That would be me. I help free people from the conditions that they've been put on under by witchcraft or just by the conditions of life. But long story short, I began seeing in the realm of the spirit at the age of 7 years old. A year later, at the age of 8, my grandfather took me under his wing and began to mentor me as a spiritual practitioner of the African diaspora tradition that we know as root work, hoodoo, conjure, etc. Not long after that, of course, I accepted the call of ministry at about the age of 16 and did traveling ministry for quite a while. Have the opportunity and the privilege to sit under some very seasoned prophets and prophetess. And after a while, I just realized that was just not where my calling would be most expressed. So I found out that there were some things that the people in the pulpit were teaching and espousing and preaching that were just, not congruent with the scriptures. And they knew this. I asked them, they knew that was not the case. So I knew that was just not for me at that time. And so after that, I went from the church and began to really engage and embrace the mystic community. And in that, I found that my job was to bridge those two worlds again, to be the extension of God's hand from the ministry into the mystery.
Wow. Wow. So we're going to have a whole separate conversation at some point about ATRs and hoodoo and voodoo and the occult, because there's so many misconceptions surrounding these spiritual practices and religions and what we in the metaphysical community call spiritual technology, because I love the conversation we had the other day as it relates to the real meaning of witchcraft, especially from a biblical perspective. So we definitely have to get into that conversation at another point in time. And so where can the people find you if they want to book you for a prophetic reading or any healing work, etc.?
Okay, sure. So I'm on a number of the social media platforms. You can find me on Instagram at Khozmiq_Newage. I am on Facebook. You can find my business page there, Dr. Doktor, Khozmiq Newage. And of course, you can find me on YouTube at The Conjure Chronicles, CONJURE, The Conjure Chronicles on YouTube. I have an array of videos. As a matter of fact, we have a couple of videos that we did on my channel there. So there's a lot of ways you can find me and connect with me. We can go from there.
Okay. Wonderful. And I will definitely have all of Khozmiq's information in the description box below, guys, and it'll probably be somewhere down in the bottom of the screen as well. So you guys make sure to check out that description box, because there's always lots of information in that description box. So as you may or may not know, there's been a lot going on with what my good friend Larry would call Baby Jakes, John Gray. He entered into some type of an infidelity, some type of extramarital affair experience at some point last year, and him and his wife took to their pulpit at their congregation and alluded to some form of infidelity that caused a bit of strife in the marriage. And they both went on this huge spew about how they wasn't going to let the devil win, especially his wife. She definitely was really invested in this whole idea that the devil was in her marriage, the devil was attacking her marriage, and she was not going to let up on the devil, and that he had found the right one. And a lot of the public attitude about that was they felt a little bit uneasy, because it felt like there was more blame on the devil than John Gray. Now, I recently just watched a video of John Gray attending a service at T.D. Jakes' church, and John Gray was face first in the floor, boo-hoo crying, and just reduced to a utter baby. And he's feeling very suicidal. He's under a lot of mental and emotional turmoil. And T.D. Jakes pretty much, prophesied it over him, spoke power and liberation into him, and just affirmed to him and comfort to him, and knowing that God was making a man out of him, even through his trials, that God is making a man out of him. So what do you think, especially as it relates to believers? And it's kind of really hard for me to have these conversations about Christians specifically, because a lot of the mystics still follow the principles and teachings of Christ as well. But when I feel like I say Christians, I feel like I'm talking about a specific type of people. But Christianity, like I guess all other religions, their reach is so far and wide that even people who don't practice these religions and these orders in the traditional way still align themselves to a lot of these religious ideologies, which is, I guess, why those of us in the spiritual community have just come to call ourselves spiritual are just simply mystics. And we kind of, draw from all of the pots. But nonetheless, what do you think about this idea of blaming the devil? How much credit should the devil get in terms of our flaws, our imperfections, and our shortcomings?
Well, the only credit that is due him, per se, if we're using, that food of thought, is as the tempter, is as the presenter of an opportunity. And that's really it. That's really as far as his credit goes to, is as the tempter, is as the accuser of the brethren, is as one that stalks around the world seeking whom he may devour. So his whole objective is to be hungry for the souls of humanity. That's really all we can blame upon him. He's hungry. Now, whether we feed him or not, is an entirely different conversation. I think that, so just to kind of back up for a minute, while I was in ministry, there were two ministries that operated in very, very powerfully. That was, as you know, the prophetic ministry and the deliverance ministry.
Yes.
That would demon all the time. And in having that paradigm that there is a devil, that there are demons, and that kind of demonologist paradigm, you do run into an issue of responsibility. Who should we blame? And one of the things that we ministered was not only deliverance, but also discipline. And that the two are not to be confused. Some things is not a demon issue, it's a discipline issue. Because what do you do once you kick the demon out of your house, or once you kick the devil out of your marriage? How do you safeguard against further intrusion? How do you safeguard against further intervention? You do that by disciplining your soul.
Disciplining your soul.
It's a twofold process. When we look biblically, when Jesus began to minister powerfully in deliverance, for example, at the chapter of the book of Mark, I believe, with the man in the tombs, there was both the man and the demon, and Jesus dealt with both. He cast the devil out, but he counseled the man. And you have to have the wisdom to do both. There is both a need for deliverance, all right, and for discipline. And so just blame it all on the devil it doesn't get you anywhere. All right, it doesn't get you anywhere. It leaves an open door for you to come out and attack again, number one. Number two, they just listen to the book of James, let no man say that he is tempted, he's tempted of God, because God is not tempted as man tempts. In other words, we're led astray by our own lust.
So, just to be clear for the audience's sake, when you say deliverance, what does that mean, especially in this particular context of infidelity? Like, being delivered from what exactly?
Okay, so I believe that there are spiritual forces active in creation that war against, that hate, really, the souls of mankind. All right. I believe that. However, I also believe that there is a power superior to them. Okay? So, deliverance ministry is just that. It is exerting power over sinister forces. All right? So let me put in a very plain example. You're in an apartment and the rent is due and you haven't paid. So they then send you an eviction notice. All right? And if necessary, they will come in and remove all of your stuff. All right? They will evict you. So deliverance is the eviction of demonic forces. So in the context we were speaking of earlier about the balance between deliverance and discipline, think of it again as if you were going to the doctor or to a surgeon, okay, there's an aspect there where the surgeon has to literally cut you open and remove or repair whatever's going on in the body. That would be the act of deliverance. It is a very aggressive form of removing the tumor, removing the growth, whatever is malignant that's operating in that person. All right. But then after that, the surgeon's going to give you some aftercare. Take this medication. Don't do any strenuous activity. Take a few days off from work. Drink more water, etc. That relates to the discipline aspect. How do I, as a doctor, ensure that you don't go through this again? And that happens by some kind of lifestyle change.
So I was just about to say that kind of would be the whole point of living a virtuous life, because a virtuous life keeps us free of negative charge or addiction or affliction, and we don't have to yield so profoundly and dramatically in times of trial and tribulation. When we live a virtuous life, all we need is a little mental discipline, because we have a whole lifestyle that supports our alignment overall.
Absolutely. And let's also be clear, discipline both on the front and the back of this, meaning that it was a lack of discipline somewhere in his life that opened a door. There was a crack, a crevice, by way temptation to leak its way in. And there was some aspect of his life, of his ministry, of his marriage that was unguarded.
And you just walked right into where I was going to go in this conversation, as all prophets always do. John Gray revealed in that whole soliloquy that him and his wife had given at their church, that growing up, he was never the one kind of who could get girls. He was always the kind of shy guy. He also reserved himself sexually for his wife, so he remained abstinent until marriage. And he kind of alluded that these things kind of came back to bite him in his ass at some point, because he's never went through this experimental phase. He's never went through this sowing of wild oats, phase in his life. And so do you think that that's where the crevices and the openings were? And what do you think about like manhood and sexuality? Because there is this whole big idea that, men and women should kind of prematurely engage in these things to kind of get these things out of them. Yeah, like, get to know yourself and find out who you are, so that you don't have all of these layering and identity crisis, once you come into marriage and come into commitment. Do you think that there's anything to be said about that?
Well, I'm going to address the first part here, because I think that kind of leads into the second question that you gave there. And listening to what you said, as a prophet, I pick up on one thing in particular. It's not, that he didn't sow the royal oak. It's not that he remained absent. What I pick up on is the root of rejection. I pick up on that was the part that was unguarded. There was and even in that, like you said about the sowing of the royal oaks and sexual experimentation, really the root of that opening, that cleavage could have been sealed up if there was someone there who could affirm him as a man, that he didn't have to perform sexual acts to be quote unquote be a man. All right? So somewhere in his thinking, it was associated that being a man, was having sex. And the more sex you had, the more man you were. All right? That comes because there's some place in his sexual identity that was not affirmed. So that left an open door for, as he mentioned there, he admitted to, rejection to come in. He had rejection, fear of rejection, and self-rejection. So these things, that is what, in fact, was put at bay. That is what, in fact, came to eat, bite him in the ass, so to speak, was those unchecked chambers of rejection, self-rejection, and fear of rejection. And so now it is festered. And, you know, just like money, status, and so on, the exact same thing. They never change a person. My mentor taught. He said money does not change people. Money exposes people. He used a little joke. He said, you know, you were always bitter, but you were so broke nobody cared. The idea being that once you come to a public platform, the people that have been in the hiding, they now also have access to a public platform. You see, when you go somewhere, you take all of you with you. So all of you goes into the next level of your status, the next level of your income, the next level of your relationship. All of you goes into those other levels. And if they're left unchecked, if they're left unguarded, if they're left undealt with, then that becomes a kryptonite to you later on down the road. So I believe that from what my prophetic ears heard, was that the root of this was rejection, and fear of rejection, and self-rejection. And a lot of people, a lot of us, deal with and are challenged with on a daily basis.
And you know what's so interesting about that is that I have to really give some props to his wife, because she kind of she targeted that as it relates to this situation that her marriage was in. You know, she was saying, you know, I wasn't going to let the devil come in and let somebody speak to this unresolved little boy inside of my husband. I wasn't going to let the devil come in and speak to this wounded part of my husband. And, you know, she was very aware of that. And, you know, it's interesting being a millennial, because a lot of the millennials are not really spiritual. They're more intellectual. And so when they hear a lot of spiritual talk and spiritual lingo and spiritual ideology, they can't relate to it. It doesn't really resonate to them. So they only can deal with the objectiveness of a situation. And so a lot of people just really, a lot of the millennials just could not really get with the whole you know, you spoke to some dysmorphed, deformed aspect of my husband's consciousness, and that there's a war that's waging within our psyche and within our actual soul, not just within our brains, not just within this kind of 1 + 1 = 2 format in life that, as you said earlier, you know, I too believe in spiritual temptations. I believe in the metaphysical world, in the unseen world, and I believe that there are forces that do resist what's good, that do resist the light, this whole balance between light and dark, yin and yang, and that there's always this balancing that's happening like within consciousness across the entire spectrum, and that we and all of creation is in this weird dance in the middle of it all, attempting to find our own equilibrium. And so I have to get my tops off to his wife for who is calling me interrupting ministry. Who's interrupting church?
Somebody ain't got the Holy Ghost.
Somebody who ain't got none of the ghost. Oh God. Okay, hold on. Let me reject this call real quick. Okay, so should great men of God, because we're coming down to our 30-minute mark, and I don't want to keep you forever. What do you, as it relates to leadership, because, you know, I wrestle with leadership and kind of where our compassion and empathy should be toward our leaders. These people are still human, nonetheless anointed, nonetheless gifted. But how much compassion do you think should be given toward our leaders, especially when they fall. Now John Gray is feeling exceptionally emotionally exhausted. He's feeling suicidal, and I don't think it's just because of the infidelity, but I think it's just the stress of the entire lifestyle that surrounds him, and him having to constantly perform as a man of God, as a life coach, as a reality star, as a husband. He has all of these roles and all of these responsibilities, and I think he's kind of just coming upon a time in his life where he's just really feeling the weight of it all. What is the role of those who support him? What is the role of the church as it relates to leaders?
Well, that's why you bring up that distinction, because I definitely would not sit on your phone and advocate that the world, as it were, the secular world, would have any kind of passion. But like you said, they don't understand. But for those who are in the body, I think that John Gray is interesting because he has seen a slew of these exposés with ministers. But I think we can all agree that in John Gray's case, there's something different here, and I think it is the willingness, whether genuine or not, the willingness to have this public defacing and this public humility go on, this public cry for help. We don't see that very often in this generation. A lot of ministers, they will lie, they will hide, they will go roundabout, they will be puffed up in their own arrogance. A lot of leaders, ministry or not, do that. So we're in a generation now where, if I have enough money, then it never happened, or whatever the case may be. So seeing this brokenness definitely does give pause. Now, the scripture tells us, it says that we who are spiritual, okay, Galatians chapter 6, we who are spiritual, if one of us is caught in a fault, to restore such a one, considering yourselves also. Well, that's a little too deep for some people, but you got to be spiritual to do that, not religious, not just a church goer or a Bible something. You got to be spiritual. So I believe that as of right now, we do need to be supportive, handle in prayer, understand the pressures that come with ministry, and then the more public your ministry is, the more pressure there is on it. But also say this, another thing I've noticed too, with a lot of these kind of public breakdowns and things like that of ministers, is where is their spiritual covering? A lot of these ministers are kind of, for lack of a better term, self-made. You don't really know what stock they come from, what spiritual lineage they lay claim to, who mentored them, who imparted to them, who is their overseer. All right? Because that is where they need to come in place to begin to guard, to begin to mentor, to begin to pour into, to begin to heal, to apply the salve to wounded areas. So in other words, it takes a village. There is both a response for those who he leads and those he's supposed to be submitted to. And I think that when you have ministers who have withdrawn themselves, who are not under a covering, and they're even the more vulnerable to situations like this.
Yeah. And we do have a lot of bastard leaders. We have a lot of powerful people who do not have spiritual fathers and spiritual mothers, and don't have a check and balance system, don't have a system of accountability in their lives, and they're taking on something that requires more than just them. And I think that's why there are so many shortcomings. Something that I was going to say, and it kind of slipped my mind. Larry Reed made a very interesting point. He said that it's and I think he was dead on with this. He said that it's very difficult in terms of public perception in the court of public opinion. It's difficult for the public sometime to really empathize, especially when it comes to religious or spiritual leaders, because a lot of times these leaders don't want to put their humanity on display until they fall. And it's not until they, but prior to the fall, they kind of are okay with parading around and masquerading around in this perfection and in this glory, but then they want all of this empathy and sympathy when you know, when they miss a step. What do you think about that? Do you think that leaders should?
I think some leaders are humble. I think that as you were talking, I'm remembering in the scriptures where Pontius Pilate, this is long after Jesus had to sentence the man that you know to be crucified, he was giving a speech, and the people said, "He speaketh like a god," and they were just, stunned and awe-inspired by his words. He was a great orator, but he did not give glory to God. It says that the angel of the Lord came and struck him dead, and the worms ate up his flesh. And I really believe that a lot of ministers go through a Pontius Pilate experience where they kind of get propped up on their high horse, and they don't become deferential to God, and God strikes them, and sometimes a condition will eat them up publicly. It's the same thing that happened with Moses, where God told Moses to speak to the rock, but instead Moses spoke to it. Moses hid it. And God said, because you did not sanctify me in the eyes of the people, you will not reach the promised land. So oftentimes, like you said, there's a God complex that ministers will have. My mentor said it like this. Because whenever you go into ministry, there are always going to be 3 pitfalls. Any man of God that has fallen from the one of 3 traps. Either it was the gold, it was money that are greedy, it was the girl, some type of infidelity, some type of lust issue that was unchecked, or it was the glory, the pride, their arrogance, their haughtiness got the best of them. The gold, the girls, and the glory. You can avoid those traps, you can have a long life in ministry.
I can get with that. That's perfect.
So I really feel that you're absolutely right. They will wait to, it's almost like they will capitalize their humanity when it's beneficial.
When it's convenient.
When I began in prophetic ministry, my mentor said something to me very, very straightforward. He said, don't ever forget, yes, you are a man of God, but you are no more a man of God than you are first a man. And so you're also subject to the same temptation, the same tribulation, the same issues that is common to men. You're not absolved from strife. You're not absolved from challenges in life because you're a man of God. And I think, if anything, it is in the humanity of a vessel that the divinity of God shines forth even all the more. For example, when you have a glass cup and that glass breaks, the water begins to leak out. It is the brokenness of the vessel that reveals the integrity of what's in it. The water leaks out because that's the nature of water to do. It's liquid. But we won't know that unless the vessel is broken. There is a call for brokenness for ministers, both privately, which is paramount, and also publicly.
I like the acknowledgement of being both the Son of God and the Son of Man.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. If there's anything that you could say to John Gray, what would you say to him if he ever came across this recording?
I would say, brother, take a step back, take a step down. Let your leaders pour into you. Get into counseling. Right? Do not resume the pulpit until not only you internally, but also your leader has given you license to do so. All right? This is time to be restored. This is time to be repaired. This is time to encounter God as a healer, but also as your comforter.
I will have.
So that's what I would say to him.
Okay, and I want to co-sign that, and I encourage you, John Gray, to strive to be as addicted to your wife as you are to the Bojangles drive-through.
He's gonna leave the wrong kitchen.
So we are at our 35-minute mark. I think this was a healthy, condensed unpacking and reflection upon the John Gray moment that's playing out. How do you feel about it?
I think it went awesome. For that short amount of time, like, yeah, we covered a whole lot.
Yeah, a whole lot. So I guess we shall end here. I don't want to give you guys too much because there's going to be a Patreon that some of these shows are going to be uploaded to. You guys can get the super deluxe editions of these recordings and conversations elsewhere. But I want to thank you, Khozmiq, for participating early in the AMs in this conversation. I always appreciate you and rendezvousing with you, and I think you're such a great speaker and theologian and scholar, and you know your shit down to a T, and I'm so excited to introduce my audience to you. You've been a great blessing to me ever since I've known you, and you've been in my life for years, and I don't think that I even have another associate in my life that I can really, dig deep with, and I just appreciate your capacity, and I'm just excited for everything that I know God is going to do for you in 2019, and I'm excited to not only be a observer of that, but to also help to facilitate what God is going to be doing in this new season of your life. So I'm just looking forward to 2019 with you, brother. I am looking to the new year with you, brother, and I'm excited, for my audience to experience you, brother. And you guys, Khozmiq has a YouTube channel. My guy is almost at 1K. We need to get him to that 1K mark on his YouTube channel. We need to get him monetized. We need to get him super chatting. We need to get him live streaming. You guys are going to be so blessed about this brother. He's so creative and so well versed, and he can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and can kind of cater to all your needs. He is a provider that you definitely do not want to miss out on. Can you give the people your social medias again, and definitely your YouTube?
Yes, certainly. So, like I said, I'm on most of your social media platforms. So on Instagram, it is Khozmiq_Newage. Or you can find me, Dr. Khozmiq Newage, Dokpor. Then, of course, on YouTube, you can find me under the Conjure Chronicles, on YouTube.
All right, wonderful. And once again, people, all of that information will be in the description box below. So make sure that you guys check out that description box. We're going to catch you guys on the flip side. And I hope you guys are blessed by this recording. You guys can play these recordings while you guys are on the way to work, while you are cleaning up around the house, or while you're on the move, or while you're on the bus, on the train, and just get your life. Definitely let us know how you feel about the conversation and what you think about what John Gray is going through. Just leave all of your thoughts in the comment section below. And once again, thank you, Khozmiq.
Thank you, bro.
No problem. All right, guys. Check you out later.